What if I told you that in the next few minutes you're going to discover the exact system that will stop negative thoughts from controlling your life forever? What if I told you that there's a quick fix that actually works, that doesn't require years of therapy or complicated meditation practices? You see, right now as you're listening to this, your mind is probably generating between 60 to 80 thoughts per day. And here's the shocking truth. Up to 80% of those thoughts are negative. That means every single day your brain is bombarding you with 50 negative thoughts. No wonder you feel exhausted. No wonder you feel stuck. No wonder you feel like you're fighting an uphill battle. But here's what nobody's telling you. Those negative thoughts aren't just random. They're not just bad luck. They're a system. And if negative thinking is a system, then positive thinking can be a system, too. Today, you're going to learn that system. You're going to discover the quick fix that will transform your mental landscape forever. Chapter 1: The Negative Thought Prison. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening in your mind right now. Every negative thought you have is like a drop of poison in a glass of water. One drop might not seem like much, but when you're adding 50 drops every single day, that water becomes toxic and you're drinking from that glass every moment of your life. Think about your morning routine. You wake up and within seconds your mind starts its daily assault. I don't want to get up. I'm already behind. This day is going to be terrible. I look awful. I'm not ready for what's coming. Before you've even brushed your teeth, you've already consumed dozens of these poison drops. But here's where it gets really insidious. These thoughts don't just stay in your head. They become your reality. Every negative thought you think sends a signal to your nervous system. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. So when you think I'm going to fail, your body responds as if failure is actually happening right now. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, stress hormones flood your system. Now multiply this by 50 times per day and you begin to understand why you feel the way you feel. You're not weak, you're not broken, you're not lacking willpower. You're living in a constant state of physiological stress because your thoughts are literally poisoning your system. The negative thought prison has 3 walls. And until you understand these walls, you'll never break free. The first wall is the automatic wall. These are the thoughts that just appear without your permission. You're not choosing them. They're choosing you. The second wall is the amplification wall. One negative thought leads to another, which leads to another, creating cascading avalanches of negativity. The third wall is the authority wall. You believe these thoughts are true. You give them authority over your emotions, your decisions, your life. Most people try to fight negative thoughts with positive thinking. But that's like trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon. You're not fighting individual thoughts. You're fighting a system. And the only way to beat a system is with a better system. The prison walls seem solid, but they're actually made of mist. The moment you understand how to see through them, they disappear. The moment you learn the architecture of negative thinking, you gain the blueprint for positive transformation. And that's exactly what you're about to discover. Your negative thoughts follow predictable patterns. They use the same triggers, the same pathways, the same emotional hijacking techniques every single time. Once you recognize these patterns, once you see the matrix of your own mind, you can't unsee it. And that recognition is the beginning of your freedom. Chapter 2: The Biology of Mental Poison. Your brain wasn't designed for the modern world. It was designed to keep you alive in an environment where danger was real, immediate, and physical. A rustling bush might contain a predator. A strange sound might signal an attack. Your survival depended on your ability to scan for threats, anticipate problems, and react instantly to potential danger. This is why your brain has what neuroscientists call a negativity bias. Your neural networks are literally wired to prioritize negative information over positive information. Bad news travels through your brain faster than good news. Threatening information gets processed more quickly than safe information. Your brain treats every worry like a saber-toothed tiger. But here's the problem. In today's world, the threats aren't physical. They're psychological. The dangers aren't real. They're imagined. But your ancient brain doesn't know the difference. When you worry about a presentation at work, your brain responds as if you're being chased by a predator. When you stress about money, your nervous system activates as if your life is in immediate danger. This creates what I call the stress paradox. The very mechanism that was supposed to protect you is now destroying you. The negativity bias that kept your ancestors alive is keeping you anxious, depressed, and stuck. You're running ancient software on modern problems, and the code is completely incompatible. Every negative thought triggers a cascade of biochemical reactions in your body. Cortisol floods your system, raising your blood pressure and suppressing your immune function. Adrenaline pumps through your veins, making you feel agitated and restless. Norepinephrine alters your brain chemistry, making it harder to think clearly and easier to panic. But it gets worse. These stress chemicals don't just affect you in the moment. They actually change the physical structure of your brain over time. Chronic negative thinking literally shrinks your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation. Meanwhile, it enlarges your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for fear and anxiety. This means that the more you think negatively, the better you get at thinking negatively. It's like going to the gym. But instead of building muscle, you're building anxiety. Instead of getting stronger, you're getting more sensitive to stress. Your brain is physically rewiring itself to be more negative, more reactive, more fearful. The good news is that your brain is also capable of positive neuroplasticity. Just as negative thinking can rewire your brain for anxiety, positive thinking can rewire your brain for resilience, confidence, and peace. The same biological mechanisms that create the problem can create the solution. When you learn to stop negative thoughts, you're not just changing your thinking, you're changing your brain. You're not just improving your mood, you're improving your physical health. You're not just feeling better. You're literally becoming a different person at the cellular level. This is why the quick fix I'm about to share with you is so powerful. It works with your biology, not against it. It uses your brain's own mechanisms to create rapid, lasting change. It turns your negativity bias into a positivity advantage. Chapter 3. The Hidden Cost of Mental Chaos. Let me ask you a question that might change everything. What is your negative thinking actually costing you? Not just emotionally, but practically. What opportunities have you missed because you were too busy worrying? What relationships have you damaged because you were too caught up in negative spirals? What dreams have you abandoned because your inner critic convinced you they were impossible? Most people think negative thoughts are just uncomfortable feelings. But they're so much more than that. They're invisible barriers that separate you from the life you actually want to live. Every negative thought is a vote for a smaller version of yourself. Every worry is a bet against your own potential. Every fear-based decision is a choice to shrink instead of expand. Let's start with your relationships. Negative thinking makes you a different person to be around. When your mind is consumed with worry, stress, and self-doubt, you can't be fully present with the people you love. You're physically there, but mentally, you're trapped in a prison of your own making. Your partner talks to you, but you're thinking about tomorrow's problems. Your children want your attention, but you're reliving yesterday's mistakes. Negative thinking also makes you hyperreactive. Small problems feel like major crises. Minor criticisms feel like devastating attacks. Normal relationship challenges feel like relationship-ending disasters. You're not responding to reality. You're responding to the distorted version of reality that your negative thoughts have created. Now, let's talk about your career. Negative thinking is a creativity killer. When your mind is focused on what could go wrong, it can't focus on what could go right. When you're worried about failure, you can't envision success. When you're trapped in fear-based thinking, you miss opportunities that require courage, creativity, and confidence. I've seen incredibly talented people sabotage their own careers because their negative thinking convinced them they weren't good enough, smart enough, or qualified enough. They didn't apply for promotions they deserved. They didn't start businesses they were capable of running. They didn't take risks that could have transformed their lives. But perhaps the highest cost of negative thinking is what it does to your physical health. Chronic stress from negative thinking doesn't just make you feel bad. It makes you sick. It suppresses your immune system, making you more vulnerable to infections and diseases. It raises your blood pressure, increasing your risk of heart disease and stroke. It disrupts your sleep, making it harder for your body to repair and regenerate. Research shows that people with chronic negative thinking patterns are more likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue, digestive problems, and even premature aging. Your thoughts aren't just affecting your mind, they're affecting every cell in your body. And then there's the compound effect. Every day you spend trapped in negative thinking is a day you're not building the life you actually want. Every week you spend in mental chaos is a week you're not moving toward your goals. Every month you spend consumed by worry is a month you're not creating, building, or growing. Time is your most valuable resource, and negative thinking is stealing it from you. Not just the time you spend actively worrying, but the time you spend recovering from worry. The time you spend paralyzed by fear. The time you spend second-guessing decisions you should make quickly and confidently. The hidden cost of mental chaos isn't just what it takes from you. It's what it prevents you from becoming. It's not just about the pain you feel. It's about the joy you miss. It's not just about the problems it creates. It's about the solutions it prevents you from seeing. But here's the beautiful truth. Every cost I've just described can be reversed. Every price you've paid can be recovered. Every opportunity you've missed can be replaced by better opportunities. The moment you learn to stop negative thoughts forever, you don't just stop the damage, you start the healing. Chapter 4. The Quick Fix Framework Revealed. Now, I'm going to share with you the exact system that will stop negative thoughts in their tracks. This isn't theory. This isn't philosophy. This is a practical step-by-step framework that you can use starting right now. I call it the RESET protocol, and it's the most powerful mental tool you'll ever learn. R stands for recognize. E stands for examine. S stands for stop. E stands for exchange. T stands for transform. These 5 steps, when applied correctly, will give you complete control over your mental state. Let me break down each step in detail. The first step is recognize. Most negative thoughts operate below the level of consciousness. They're like background music in a store. You're being influenced by them, but you're not actively aware they're playing. The moment you learn to recognize negative thoughts as they arise, you take the first step toward freedom. Recognition isn't about judgment. You're not trying to determine if the thought is right or wrong, good or bad. You're simply becoming aware that you're having a negative thought. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The moment you can see what's there, you can do something about it. But recognition requires practice because negative thoughts are sneaky. They disguise themselves as facts. They present themselves as reasonable concerns. They masquerade as logical planning. A negative thought doesn't announce itself by saying, "Hi, I'm here to ruin your day." It says things like, "You should probably worry about this," or "You need to think this through," or "What if something goes wrong?" The second step is examine. Once you've recognized that you're having a negative thought, you need to examine it objectively. This is where you become a scientist of your own mind. You don't accept the thought as truth, and you don't reject it as false. You examine it with curiosity. Ask yourself 3 questions. Is this thought helpful? Is this thought accurate? Is this thought productive? Most negative thoughts fail all 3 tests. They're not helping you solve problems. They're not accurately representing reality, and they're not moving you toward your goals. The examination step is crucial because it breaks the automatic authority that negative thoughts have over you. Instead of being a victim of your thoughts, you become an investigator. Instead of being controlled by your mental patterns, you become curious about them. The third step is stop. This is where you interrupt the negative thought pattern before it can gain momentum. You don't try to fight the thought or push it away because that just gives it more energy. Instead, you use a pattern interrupt technique that immediately shifts your mental state. The most effective pattern interrupt I've discovered is what I call the mental circuit breaker. The moment you recognize and examine a negative thought, you say to yourself, "Stop. Reset. Redirect." You can say it out loud or silently, but you say it with authority. You're not asking the thought to leave. You're commanding it to stop. The fourth step is exchange. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does your mind. If you stop a negative thought without replacing it with something else, another negative thought will quickly take its place. That's why the exchange step is so important. You immediately replace the negative thought with a predetermined positive thought. This isn't about fake positivity or pretending problems don't exist. This is about choosing thoughts that serve you instead of thoughts that sabotage you. Instead of "I'm going to fail," you exchange it for "I'm learning and growing." Instead of "This is impossible," you exchange it for "This is challenging and I'm up for it." The fifth step is transform. This is where you take the exchange thought and amplify it with emotion, visualization, and physical movement. You don't just think the positive thought, you feel it, see it, and embody it. This is what makes the change permanent instead of temporary. The RESET protocol works because it's based on how your brain actually functions. It works with your neurology instead of against it. It doesn't require you to be perfect. And it doesn't require massive willpower. It just requires you to apply these 5 steps consistently whenever negative thoughts arise. The beauty of this system is that it gets easier with practice. The more you use it, the faster it works. Eventually, the process becomes automatic. Your brain learns to recognize, examine, stop, exchange, and transform negative thoughts so quickly that they barely register in your consciousness. This is what I mean by a quick fix that actually works. It's quick because each application takes less than 30 seconds. It's a fix because it addresses the root cause of mental suffering. And it works because it's based on proven principles of neuroscience and psychology. Chapter 5. Mastering Recognition. The foundation of mental freedom. Recognition is the master key that unlocks every other aspect of mental transformation. Without recognition, you're unconsciously controlled by your thoughts. With recognition, you become the conscious director of your mental experience. But recognition is more nuanced and powerful than most people realize. There are 3 levels of recognition, and mastering all 3 levels will give you unprecedented control over your mental state. Level 1 is surface recognition, becoming aware of obvious negative thoughts. Level 2 is pattern recognition, identifying the deeper structures and triggers that create negative thinking. Level 3 is predictive recognition, catching negative thoughts before they fully form. Let's start with surface recognition. This is where you learn to identify negative thoughts as they occur. The key is to understand that negative thoughts have distinct characteristics. They create contraction in your body. Quote, "You feel tighter, smaller, more constricted." They create depletion in your energy. You feel drained, tired, less vital. They create confusion in your mind. You feel scattered, overwhelmed, less clear. Pay attention to your physical sensations as you think. Negative thoughts almost always create tension somewhere in your body. Your shoulders might rise, your jaw might clench, your breathing might become shallow, your stomach might knot up. These physical signals are often faster and more reliable than trying to monitor your thoughts directly. Also, pay attention to your emotional signature. Negative thoughts create predictable emotional states. Anxiety, sadness, anger, frustration, overwhelm, hopelessness. But here's what most people miss. These emotions have subtle early warning signs. Anxiety starts as a slight unease. Sadness starts as a gentle heaviness. Anger starts as a minor irritation. The earlier you can catch these emotional signals, the easier it is to interrupt the negative thought pattern before it gains momentum. It's like catching a small fire before it becomes a raging inferno. A few drops of water can stop a spark, but it takes a fire department to stop a blaze. Level 2 is pattern recognition. And this is where the real power lies. Your negative thoughts aren't random. They follow predictable patterns. You have specific triggers that activate negative thinking. You have favorite negative thoughts that your mind returns to again and again. You have particular times of day when you're most vulnerable to mental chaos. Start paying attention to your negative thought triggers. What situations, people, or experiences consistently activate negative thinking? For some people, it's checking email first thing in the morning. For others, it's scrolling through social media. For many, it's interactions with specific people or types of people. Also, notice your recurring negative thought themes. Do you tend to worry about money? Do you catastrophize about health? Do you obsess over relationships? Do you ruminate about past mistakes? Most people have 3 to 5 core negative thought patterns that account for 80% of their mental suffering. Time patterns are equally important. Are you more negative in the morning or evening? Do Sundays trigger anxiety about the upcoming week? Do Mondays create dread about work? Do Friday afternoons create pressure about weekend plans? Understanding your temporal triggers allows you to be extra vigilant during vulnerable periods. Level 3 is predictive recognition, and this is the advanced skill that will make you nearly immune to negative thinking. At this level, you become so attuned to your mental patterns that you can sense a negative thought forming before it fully emerges into consciousness. This might sound mystical, but it's actually quite practical. Just as you can feel a sneeze coming before you sneeze, you can feel a negative thought coming before you think it. There's usually a subtle shift in your energy, a slight change in your breathing, a minor adjustment in your posture. The key is to slow down and pay attention. Most people live their lives at such a frantic pace that they miss these subtle signals. But when you cultivate what I call mental mindfulness, you become exquisitely aware of the micro movements of your consciousness. Predictive recognition allows you to prevent negative thoughts instead of just responding to them. It's the difference between catching a ball that's been thrown at you and preventing someone from throwing the ball in the first place. Prevention is always easier than cure. To develop predictive recognition, practice the mental weather check. Several times throughout the day, pause and ask yourself, what's the weather like in my mind right now? Are there storm clouds forming? Is there a shift in the atmospheric pressure of your consciousness? Are there early warning signs of mental turbulence? The more you practice this mental weather check, the more sensitive you become to the subtle changes in your mental climate. Eventually, you'll be able to sense negative thoughts forming and redirect your mental energy before they fully manifest. Recognition is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. Start with surface recognition, simply noticing when you're having negative thoughts. Then develop pattern recognition, understanding your triggers and themes. Finally, cultivate predictive recognition, sensing negative thoughts before they fully form. Master recognition and you master the foundation of mental freedom. Everything else builds on this crucial first step. Chapter 6, The Examination. Becoming the detective of your own mind. Once you've mastered recognition, the next step in the reset protocol is examination. And this is where most people either accelerate their transformation or sabotage their progress. The examination phase is not about judging your thoughts or trying to determine if they're right or wrong. It's about becoming a neutral, curious observer of your own mental processes. Think of yourself as a detective investigating a crime scene. You don't arrive at the scene with predetermined conclusions. You don't get emotionally involved in the evidence. You simply observe, gather information, and analyze what you find. This is exactly the mindset you need to bring to examining your negative thoughts. The first tool in your examination toolkit is what I call the truth test. When a negative thought arises, you ask yourself one simple question. Is this thought based on facts or fears? Most negative thoughts fail this test immediately because they're not based on what's actually happening. They're based on what might happen, could happen, or has happened in the past. For example, if your thought is, I'm going to fail this presentation, apply the truth test. Is this based on facts? The facts are that you have a presentation scheduled, you've prepared for it, and you have experience giving presentations. The fear-based addition is the assumption that you're going to fail. The fact and the fear are two completely different things. Here's what's fascinating about the truth test. When you separate facts from fears, you realize that probably 90% of your negative thoughts are pure fiction. They're stories your mind is telling you about imaginary futures that will likely never happen. You're not responding to reality. You're responding to fantasy. And once you see this clearly, those thoughts lose most of their power over you. The second examination tool is the helpfulness assessment. Even if a negative thought contains some factual elements, you need to determine whether thinking this thought is actually helping you. Ask yourself, is this thought moving me toward my goals or away from them? Is it making me stronger or weaker? Is it opening possibilities or closing them? Let's say you're thinking about a mistake you made at work. The factual element is that you did make a mistake. That's reality. But ruminating about it, replaying it endlessly, and beating yourself up over it isn't helpful. It doesn't change the past. It doesn't improve your future performance, and it doesn't solve any problems. All it does is drain your energy and undermine your confidence. A helpful response to the same mistake might be, I made an error. I've learned from it and I'll do better next time. This thought acknowledges the reality without wallowing in it. It extracts the lesson without extracting your life force. It's based on the same facts, but creates completely different emotional and behavioral outcomes. The third examination tool is what I call the time travel test. This is where you ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Will I even remember this situation in 5 years? This question has the power to instantly put things in perspective because most of the things we worry about are incredibly temporary and insignificant in the grand scheme of our lives. I remember working with someone who was consumed with anxiety about a disagreement she had with a coworker. She was losing sleep, snapping at her family and unable to focus on anything else. When I asked her if this would matter in 5 years, she paused and said, "I probably won't even be working at this company in 5 years." That single question shifted her entire perspective and allowed her to let go of days of mental torture. But the time travel test works in reverse, too. Sometimes we avoid taking important actions because we're worried about temporary discomfort or short-term challenges. In these cases, ask yourself, if I don't take action on this, where will I be in 5 years? What will I regret not doing? The fourth examination tool is the evidence evaluation. This is where you become a lawyer in the courtroom of your own mind. When a negative thought makes a claim, you demand to see the evidence. Not assumptions, not possibilities, not fears. Actual concrete evidence. If your thought is, "Nobody likes me," what's the evidence? Has every single person you've ever met explicitly told you they don't like you? Have you conducted a scientific survey of everyone's opinions about you? Of course not. The evidence is usually a few isolated incidents, misinterpreted social cues, or projections of your own insecurities. Real evidence evaluation requires intellectual honesty. You have to be willing to look at the evidence that contradicts your negative thoughts, not just the evidence that supports them. If you think nobody likes you, what about the people who choose to spend time with you? What about the friends who call you? What about the positive interactions you have every day that you're dismissing or ignoring? The fifth examination tool is the alternative explanation exercise. For every negative interpretation of events, there are usually multiple alternative explanations that are equally plausible and far more empowering. This exercise trains you to consider possibilities beyond your default negative assumptions. If someone doesn't respond to your text message, your negative thought might be, "They're ignoring me because they're angry." Alternative explanations. "They're busy at work. They saw the message but forgot to respond. They're dealing with a personal situation. Their phone died. They're planning to respond later when they have more time." All of these explanations are equally valid. But only the negative one causes emotional suffering. The key to effective examination is emotional distance. You're not trying to defend or attack your thoughts. You're simply investigating them with scientific curiosity. This emotional neutrality is crucial because the moment you get emotionally involved in the examination process, you lose objectivity and the whole exercise becomes counterproductive. Practice examining your thoughts like you're studying someone else's thoughts. What would you tell a friend who was having these same negative thoughts? What advice would you give them? Often we have clarity about other people's situations that we completely lack about our own. The examination phase helps you apply that same external clarity to your internal experience. Remember, the goal of examination isn't to prove your negative thoughts wrong. It's to see them clearly. Sometimes examination will reveal that a negative thought contains important information that you need to act on. But most of the time examination will reveal that your negative thoughts are mental smoke. They seem substantial until you look closely and then they dissolve. The examination phase is what separates reactive people from responsive people. Reactive people are controlled by their first thoughts. Responsive people examine their thoughts and choose which ones deserve their attention and energy. Master the art of examination. And you master the art of mental self-defense. Chapter 7. The Pattern Interrupt. How to Stop Mental Momentum in Its Tracks. The third step in the RES protocol is the most critical and the most misunderstood. This is where you actually interrupt the negative thought pattern before it can build momentum and take control of your mental state. But stopping negative thoughts isn't about fighting them or trying to push them out of your mind. That approach not only doesn't work, it actually makes the thoughts stronger and more persistent. Think about what happens when you try not to think about a white elephant. The moment someone says, "Don't think about a white elephant," what immediately appears in your mind? A white elephant. This is because your brain can't process the word don't. It only hears white elephant and creates exactly what you're trying to avoid. The same principle applies to negative thoughts. When you try to fight a negative thought, when you resist it or push against it, you're actually giving it more energy and attention. You're feeding the very thing you're trying to starve. This is why willpower and positive thinking alone are ineffective strategies for dealing with negative thoughts. Instead of fighting negative thoughts, you interrupt them. And the most powerful way to interrupt a negative thought is with what I call the circuit breaker technique. Just like an electrical circuit breaker stops the flow of electricity when there's an overload, this technique stops the flow of negative mental energy when there's a thought overload. The circuit breaker technique has three components: the stop command, the physical reset, and the attention redirect. Let me break down each component in detail. The stop command is a firm authoritative mental instruction that you give to your own mind. The moment you recognize and examine a negative thought, you say to yourself, either out loud or silently, "Stop. Reset." Now, you don't say it pleadingly or hopefully. You say it with the same authority you would use to stop someone from walking into traffic. The key is to use the same exact words every time. Stop. Reset now. Not stop thinking negatively or I need to be more positive or this isn't helping. Just stop. Reset. Now. The consistency is important because it creates a conditioned response. Over time, these three words become a powerful trigger that instantly shifts your mental state. The stop command works because it activates what neuroscientists call the prefrontal override. Your prefrontal cortex is the executive center of your brain, responsible for conscious control and decision. When you give a firm mental command, you activate this part of your brain and temporarily override the automatic thought patterns generated by other brain regions. The physical reset is the second component, and this is where you interrupt the negative thought at the body level. Negative thoughts don't just exist in your mind. They exist in your entire nervous system. They create physical patterns of tension, breathing changes, and postural shifts. To fully interrupt a negative thought, you have to interrupt these physical patterns as well. The most effective physical reset technique is what I call the power breath reset. The moment you give the stop command, you immediately take one deep breath in through your nose, hold it for 3 seconds, and then release it forcefully through your mouth with a whoosh sound. This single breath interrupts the stress response in your nervous system and creates an immediate sense of relief and control. But the physical reset can also include other movements. You might shake your hands vigorously for 5 seconds. You might roll your shoulders back and stand up straighter. You might splash cold water on your face or step outside for a moment. The key is to choose one specific physical action that you do every time, so it becomes part of your automatic response pattern. The attention redirect is the third component, and this is where you immediately focus your attention on something specific and concrete in your immediate environment. This isn't about replacing the negative thought with a positive thought, yet that comes in the next step. This is simply about redirecting your attention away from internal mental chatter and toward external sensory input. The most effective attention redirect technique is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding exercise. You identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This exercise grounds you in the present moment and breaks the hypnotic trance of negative thinking. Alternative attention redirect techniques include focusing intently on your breathing for 30 seconds, counting backwards from 100 by sevens, or describing everything you can see in your immediate environment in great detail. The goal is to occupy your conscious attention with something neutral and present moment focused. The circuit breaker technique works because it addresses negative thoughts at 3 levels simultaneously: mental, physical, and attentional. Most people try to stop negative thoughts with mental effort alone. But negative thinking is a whole body experience that requires a whole body solution. Here's what's crucial to understand. The circuit breaker technique isn't about making negative thoughts disappear forever. It's about stopping them from gaining momentum and taking control of your mental state. Think of negative thoughts like small fires. If you catch them early and interrupt them quickly, they go out easily. But if you let them burn unchecked, they become raging infernos that consume all your mental resources. The timing of the pattern interrupt is critical. The longer you wait after recognizing a negative thought, the more momentum it builds and the harder it becomes to interrupt. This is why the examination phase should be brief, just long enough to see the thought clearly, but not so long that the thought has time to multiply and spread. Practice the circuit breaker technique when you're not in the middle of negative thinking, so it becomes automatic when you need it most. Just like fire drills, mental pattern interrupts need to be rehearsed when you're calm, so they're available when you're stressed. Some people worry that interrupting negative thoughts is a form of denial or avoidance. But there's a huge difference between suppressing valid concerns and interrupting mental garbage. If a negative thought contains important information that requires action, the examination phase will reveal that. But most negative thoughts are just mental noise that serves no constructive purpose. The circuit breaker technique gives you the power to choose which thoughts deserve your attention and which thoughts deserve to be interrupted. This choice is the foundation of mental freedom and the key to breaking free from unconscious negative thought patterns. Chapter 8. The Exchange. Trading mental poison for mental medicine. The fourth step in the REC protocol is where the real transformation happens. This is where you replace the negative thought you've interrupted with a specifically chosen positive thought that serves your goals, supports your well-being, and moves you toward the life you actually want to live. But here's where most people make a critical mistake. They think the exchange step is about fake positivity or pretending problems don't exist. They try to replace "I'm going to fail" with "everything is perfect" or substitute "this is terrible" with "this is amazing." This approach fails because your mind rejects thoughts that are obviously untrue or unrealistic. The exchange step isn't about deluding yourself with fantasy. It's about choosing thoughts that are both empowering and believable. It's about finding perspectives that acknowledge reality while supporting your mental health and forward progress. It's about becoming a curator of your own consciousness, deliberately selecting thoughts that serve you instead of sabotage you. The key to effective thought exchange is understanding the difference between positive thinking and powerful thinking. Positive thinking tries to make everything seem good. Powerful thinking acknowledges challenges while maintaining agency, capability, and forward momentum. Powerful thinking is realistic optimism rather than delusional positivity. For example, if your negative thought is, "I'm terrible at this," a positive thinking replacement might be, "I'm amazing at this." But if you genuinely struggle with whatever this is, your mind will reject that replacement immediately. A powerful thinking replacement would be, "I'm learning and improving at this," or "I'm developing my skills in this area." These thoughts acknowledge your current reality while directing your energy toward growth and possibility. The most effective exchange thoughts fall into 5 categories, and I call them the 5 pillars of mental strength. Understanding these 5 pillars will give you a framework for creating exchange thoughts that are both believable and empowering. The first pillar is growth orientation. Instead of thoughts that assume fixed limitations, you choose thoughts that assume continuous development. Instead of "I'm not good at public speaking," you think "I'm becoming more confident at public speaking." Instead of "I always mess up relationships," you think "I'm learning how to build healthier relationships." Growth orientation thoughts are powerful because they're always true. You are always learning, developing, and evolving. Even when you're struggling or failing, you're gathering information that contributes to your eventual success. Growth orientation thoughts redirect your focus from current limitations to future possibilities. The second pillar is resource focus. Instead of thoughts that emphasize what you lack, you choose thoughts that emphasize what you have. Instead of "I don't have enough time," you think "I'll use my time wisely." Instead of "I don't know how to do this," you think "I'll figure this out," or "I'll find the resources I need." Resource-focused thoughts shift you from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. They help you see opportunities instead of obstacles, solutions instead of problems, possibilities instead of limitations. When you focus on your resources, your skills, your knowledge, your relationships, your creativity, you feel more capable and confident. The third pillar is action orientation. Instead of thoughts that create paralysis, you choose thoughts that inspire movement. Instead of "this is too overwhelming," you think "I'll take this one step at a time." Instead of "I don't know where to start," You think I'll start with what I can control right now. Action orientation thoughts break large challenges into manageable pieces and point you towards specific next steps. They transform vague anxieties into concrete action plans. When you're focused on what you can do rather than what you can't do, you feel more empowered and less helpless. The fourth pillar is present moment focus. Instead of thoughts that trap you in past regrets or future fears, you choose thoughts that ground you in current reality. Instead of "I always screw things up," you think "right now I'm focused and prepared." Instead of "what if everything goes wrong," you think "right now I'm handling what's in front of me." Present moment focused thoughts are incredibly powerful because the present moment is the only time you actually have any control. You can't change the past and you can't control the future. But you can influence what's happening right now. Present focused thoughts eliminate the mental time travel that creates most emotional suffering. The fifth pillar is purpose connection. Instead of thoughts that make situations seem meaningless, you choose thoughts that connect current challenges to your larger goals and values. Instead of "this is pointless," you think "this is preparing me for something important." Instead of "why is this happening to me," you think "how can this experience help me grow?" Purpose connection thoughts give meaning to difficulty and transform obstacles into opportunities. When you can connect current struggles to future growth, you're more likely to persist through challenges and extract value from difficult experiences. Now, here's the crucial part about implementing the exchange step. You need to have your exchange thoughts prepared in advance. In the heat of negative thinking, your brain isn't in the optimal state for creating new empowering thoughts. You need to do that work when you're calm and clear-headed. I recommend creating what I call an exchange thought library. A personal collection of powerful, believable thoughts that you can use to replace common negative thought patterns. Start by identifying your most frequent negative thoughts. Then craft specific exchange thoughts for each one using the 5 pillars framework. For instance, if you frequently think, "I'm not smart enough," your exchange thought library might include "I'm capable of learning what I need to know." Growth orientation. "I have intelligence and I can develop it further." Resource focus. "I'll educate myself about this topic." Action orientation. "Right now, I'm thinking clearly and making progress." Present moment focus, and learning new things helps me become the person I want to be. Purpose connection. The more you practice the exchange step, the faster and more automatic it becomes. Eventually, positive powerful thoughts will start arising spontaneously to replace negative thoughts without conscious effort on your part. This is when you know you've successfully rewired your mental patterns. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate all challenging thoughts or difficult emotions. The goal is to ensure that your predominant thought patterns support your well-being and forward progress rather than undermining them. The exchange step gives you conscious control over the mental software that's running in the background of your life. Chapter 9. The Transformation, Making New Thoughts Stick Forever. The fifth and final step in the REC protocol is what separates temporary relief from permanent transformation. This is where you take the positive exchange thought and anchor it so deeply in your nervous system that it becomes your new automatic response. Without this step, you'll find yourself having to repeat the entire process over and over again with the same negative thoughts. Transformation happens when you engage multiple channels of your nervous system simultaneously. Most people try to change their thoughts with thinking alone. But thoughts are just one channel of human experience. To create lasting change, you need to involve emotion, visualization, and physical sensation. You need to make the new thought feel real, not just sound reasonable. The transformation step has 4 components, and I call them the live formula. Linguistic programming, imagery activation, visceral engagement, and energetic embodiment. Each component reinforces the others, creating a synergistic effect that makes new thought patterns stick permanently. Linguistic programming is the first component, and this is where you enhance the exchange thought with specific language patterns that increase its impact on your subconscious mind. Not all words are created equal. Some words create expansion in your nervous system while others create contraction. Some words inspire action while others promote passivity. For example, instead of saying "I'm trying to be more confident," you say "I am becoming more confident every day." The word trying implies struggle and possible failure while becoming implies inevitable progress. Instead of "I hope I can handle this," you say "I am fully capable of handling this." Hope is passive and uncertain while capability is active and confident. The most powerful linguistic programming technique is what I call identity integration. Instead of thinking thoughts about what you want to do or achieve, you think thoughts about who you are becoming. Instead of "I want to be successful," you think "I am a person who creates success." Instead of "I need to be more disciplined," you think "I am someone who follows through on commitments." Identity integration works because your subconscious mind is always working to make your actions consistent with your sense of identity. When you think of yourself as a confident person, you automatically start acting more confidently. When you see yourself as someone who solves problems, you naturally look for solutions instead of dwelling on difficulties. Imagery activation is the second component. And this is where you create vivid mental pictures that support your new thought pattern. Your brain processes images much faster and more powerfully than words. When you combine linguistic programming with visual imagery, you create thoughts that your mind can't ignore or forget. The key to effective imagery activation is specificity and multi-sensory detail. Don't just see yourself succeeding. See the specific environment where you're succeeding. Hear the sounds around you. Feel the physical sensations in your body. Notice the expressions on people's faces. Experience the emotions flowing through you. For example, if your exchange thought is, "I am confident and capable in social situations," don't just repeat those words. See yourself walking into a room full of people with your shoulders back and head high. Hear yourself speaking clearly and engagingly. Feel the relaxation in your muscles and the steady rhythm of your breathing. Notice people responding positively to your presence. Experience the satisfaction and enjoyment of social connection. The more vivid and detailed your mental imagery, the more real it becomes to your subconscious mind. Your brain starts creating neural pathways as if these experiences were actually happening, which makes it much easier to act confidently in real social situations. Visceral engagement is the third component, and this is where you feel the new thought pattern in your body. Thoughts aren't just mental events. They're physical events that create specific sensations throughout your nervous system. Negative thoughts create contraction, tension, and depletion. Positive thoughts create expansion, relaxation, and vitality. To engage viscerally with your new thought pattern, pay attention to how it feels in your body when you think it. Where do you feel expansion? Where do you feel lightness? Where do you feel strength? Amplify these sensations by breathing into them, moving your body in ways that enhance them, and focusing your attention on the most pleasant physical feelings. For many people, positive thoughts create a sense of warmth in the chest, lightness in the shoulders, or groundedness in the lower body. Others feel tingling in their hands, relaxation in their facial muscles, or expansion in their rib cage. There's no right or wrong way to feel positive thoughts. The important thing is to notice and amplify whatever positive sensations arise. Energetic embodiment is the fourth component, and this is where you express the new thought pattern through movement and posture. Your body language doesn't just reflect your thoughts, it actually influences them. When you stand like a confident person, you feel more confident. When you move like an energetic person, you become more energetic. The most powerful energetic embodiment technique is what I call physical claiming. After you've programmed the language, activated the imagery, and engaged viscerally with your new thought, you do something physical that claims that thought as your new reality. You might stand up straighter, smile more broadly, take a deep breath, and stretch your arms wide, or take 3 confident steps forward. Physical claiming works because it creates what psychologists call embodied cognition, the phenomenon where physical actions influence mental states. When you physically embody confidence, your brain receives feedback that you are indeed confident, which reinforces the new thought pattern at a neurological level. The live formula should be applied immediately after the exchange step while your mind is still focused on the new thought. The entire transformation process should take no more than 60-90 seconds. Any longer than that and you risk losing focus and momentum. Here's what a complete transformation sequence might look like. You recognize a negative thought. This presentation is going to be a disaster. Examine it briefly. No evidence, not helpful, based on fear, not facts. Interrupt it. Stop. Reset now. Plus a deep breath. Exchange it. I am well prepared and will deliver value to my audience. Then transform it by seeing yourself presenting confidently imagery, feeling proud and excited, visceral, standing tall and smiling, energetic while thinking I am someone who shares knowledge confidently, linguistic. The more you practice the transformation step, the more natural and automatic it becomes. Eventually, positive thoughts won't just replace negative ones. They'll be accompanied by positive feelings, images, and energy states that make them incredibly compelling and memorable. This is how you create permanent change instead of temporary relief. This is how you rewire your brain for success instead of just managing your symptoms. This is how transformation happens. Chapter 10. The implementation strategy, making this your new mental operating system. Now that you understand all 5 steps of the RE protocol, the critical question becomes, how do you implement this system so effectively that it becomes your automatic response to negative thinking? How do you transform a technique into a lifestyle? How do you make this your new mental operating system rather than just another tool you sometimes remember to use? Implementation is where most people fail. Not because the system doesn't work, but because they approach implementation randomly instead of strategically. They try to use the RESET protocol only when they remember it, only when they're already deep in negative thinking, or only when they're feeling motivated. This scattered approach produces scattered results. Successful implementation requires what I call the 3-phase integration process. Phase 1 is foundation building, where you practice the system when you don't need it. Phase 2 is real-time application, where you use the system during actual negative thinking episodes. Phase 3 is automatic integration, where the system becomes your unconscious default response. Phase 1 foundation building is absolutely critical. But most people skip it entirely. They want to wait until they're having negative thoughts to practice the RESET protocol. But that's like trying to learn to drive during a car chase. The middle of mental chaos is not the time to learn new mental skills. During foundation building, you practice each step of the protocol with manufactured scenarios. You imagine common negative thought situations and rehearse your response. You practice recognition by deliberately monitoring your thoughts throughout the day. You practice examination by questioning thoughts that aren't even particularly negative. You practice the circuit breaker technique during calm moments so it becomes automatic. You practice exchange by developing your personal exchange thought library, creating powerful replacement thoughts for your most common negative patterns. And you practice transformation by regularly engaging the live formula with your exchange thoughts, strengthening the neural pathways that support positive thinking. I recommend spending at least 2 weeks in foundation building mode, practicing the protocol 3-5 times per day during neutral moments. Set random alarms on your phone, and whenever they go off, run through the entire RESET sequence with whatever thoughts happen to be in your mind at that moment. This foundation practice serves multiple purposes. It makes each step of the protocol automatic, so you don't have to consciously remember what to do when negative thoughts arise. It builds confidence in your ability to control your mental state, which makes you less afraid of negative thoughts when they do occur, and it starts rewiring your brain toward positive thinking patterns even before you face major mental challenges. Phase 2. Real-time application is where you start using the protocol during actual negative thinking episodes. But even here, there's a strategic approach that maximizes your success rate. Start with low-stakes negative thoughts rather than your most intense mental patterns. If you typically struggle with severe anxiety about major life decisions, don't make that your first real-world test case. Instead, practice with minor irritations, small disappointments, or everyday worries. Build your confidence and skill with manageable challenges before taking on your biggest mental obstacles. During real-time application, focus on speed rather than perfection. The goal is to interrupt negative thought patterns before they build momentum. Which means applying the protocol within the first 30 seconds of recognizing negative thinking. It's better to do a quick and perfect resequence than to wait for the perfect moment and let the negative thoughts multiply. Also expect some resistance during this phase. Your brain has been running negative thought patterns for years or decades, and it won't give them up without a fight. You might find yourself forgetting to use the protocol or remembering only after you've been stuck in negative thinking for an hour. This is normal and temporary. Persistence is more important than perfection. One of the most effective real-time application strategies is what I call pattern mapping. Keep a simple log for 1 week, noting when negative thoughts occur, what triggers them, and how successfully you apply the reset protocol. This gives you data about your mental patterns and helps you identify your most vulnerable times and situations. Most people discover that they have predictable negative thought patterns, certain times of day, specific situations, particular people, or recurring themes that consistently trigger mental chaos. Once you identify these patterns, you can be extra vigilant during high-risk periods and even use the protocol preemptively. Phase 3, automatic integration, is where the E-protocol becomes your unconscious default response to negative thinking. You don't have to consciously decide to use it. It just happens automatically whenever negative thoughts arise. This typically occurs after 4-6 weeks of consistent practice. Though some people experience it sooner during automatic integration. The protocol becomes so natural that you sometimes complete the entire sequence without even realizing you've done it. You notice negative thoughts forming, but they don't gain traction because your mind automatically recognizes, examines, interrupts, exchanges, and transforms them before they can create emotional disturbance. This is when you know you've successfully reprogrammed your mental operating system. Negative thoughts still arise. They're a normal part of human consciousness, but they no longer control your emotional state or behavioral choices. They become like clouds passing through the sky of your awareness. Noticeable but not significant, present but not persistent. To accelerate the integration process, I recommend 3 supplementary practices. First, end each day with a mental review where you reflect on how you handled your thoughts throughout the day. What worked well? What could be improved? What patterns are you noticing? Second, start each day with mental preparation where you visualize yourself handling potential negative thoughts with ease and confidence. See yourself recognizing negative patterns early, applying the RE-protocol smoothly and maintaining positive mental states throughout various challenging scenarios. Third, practice positive mental rehearsal where you regularly visualize and feel the mental state you want to maintain. Don't just practice responding to negative thoughts. Practice generating and sustaining positive thoughts proactively. This builds mental strength rather than just mental defense. Remember, the goal isn't to never have another negative thought. The goal is to have complete choice about which thoughts you allow to influence your emotions and actions. The RE-S protocol gives you that choice, but only if you implement it strategically and consistently. Your mental operating system took years to develop and it won't change overnight. But with strategic implementation, you can create profound and permanent transformation in a matter of weeks. The key is treating this as a systematic process rather than a random technique and approaching it with the same dedication you would bring to learning any other life-changing skill. Chapter 11, Advanced Mental Defense, Handling the Trickiest Negative Thought Patterns. Now that you've mastered the basic REST protocol, it's time to address the advanced negative thought patterns that can slip through your defenses if you're not prepared for them. These are the sneaky, sophisticated forms of negative thinking that disguise themselves as logic, wisdom, or even positivity. They're the mental viruses that have evolved to bypass your conscious detection systems. The first advanced pattern I want to address is what I call logical negativity. These are negative thoughts that sound reasonable, rational, and well-founded. They present themselves as careful analysis or prudent planning, making them much harder to recognize and interrupt than obvious catastrophic thinking. For example, instead of thinking I'm going to fail miserably, logical negativity sounds like I should probably consider all the ways this could go wrong. So, I'm prepared instead of I'm worthless. It sounds like I need to be realistic about my limitations. Instead of everything is hopeless. It sounds like I don't want to get my hopes up and be disappointed. The problem with logical negativity is that it contains just enough truth to seem valid. It is important to consider potential challenges. It is wise to understand your limitations. It is rational to avoid unrealistic expectations. But when these reasonable thoughts become your dominant mental patterns, they create the same physiological and emotional effects as obviously irrational negative thinking. To handle logical negativity, you need to apply what I call the proportion test. Ask yourself, what percentage of my mental energy is spent on potential problems versus potential solutions? What ratio of my attention goes to limitations versus possibilities? How much time do I spend preparing for failure compared to preparing for success? If you discover that more than 30% of your mental energy is spent on negative scenarios, even logical ones, you're dealing with logical negativity. The solution isn't to ignore potential problems entirely, but to deliberately balance problem awareness with solution focus, limitation acknowledgement with possibility exploration. The second advanced pattern is disguised negativity, where negative thoughts masquerade as positive ones. These are thoughts that sound optimistic on the surface, but carry hidden negative assumptions. They're particularly dangerous because they make you feel like you're thinking positively when you're actually reinforcing limiting beliefs. Examples of disguised negativity include, "At least I'm not as bad as," which sounds like gratitude, but reinforces comparison and scarcity thinking. "Maybe if I just work harder, I'll finally be good enough," which sounds motivational, but assumes you're currently inadequate. "I'm lucky this worked out," which sounds appreciative, but implies you don't have control over your outcomes. To detect disguised negativity, pay attention to the underlying assumptions in your seemingly positive thoughts. What beliefs about yourself, others, or the world are embedded in these thoughts? Are they empowering or limiting? Do they make you feel more capable or less capable? The third advanced pattern is future-focused anxiety masquerading as planning. This is when you spend hours or days mentally rehearsing negative scenarios under the guise of being prepared. You tell yourself you're just being responsible, just thinking ahead, just making sure you're ready for anything that might happen. But there's a crucial difference between productive planning and mental torture. Productive planning involves identifying potential challenges, creating specific solutions, and then taking concrete actions. Mental torture involves endlessly cycling through worst-case scenarios without creating actionable solutions. Real planning has three characteristics. It's time-limited, it's solution-focused, and it results in specific actions. If you find yourself spending more than 20 minutes at a time on any planning session, or if your planning doesn't result in concrete next steps, or if you keep returning to the same scenarios over and over, you're not planning, you're worrying. The fourth advanced pattern is comparative negativity, where your negative thoughts are triggered by comparing yourself to others. Social media has made this pattern epidemic, but it existed long before Facebook and Instagram. Comparative negativity sounds like everyone else has it figured out except me. Other people are so much more successful, attractive, happy than I am. I should be further along by now compared to my peers. The insidious thing about comparative negativity is that it's based on incomplete information. You're comparing your internal experience, which includes all your struggles, doubts, and failures, with other people's external presentations, which include only their highlights, successes, and carefully curated image to combat comparative negativity. Practice what I call full-spectrum awareness. When you catch yourself comparing, remind yourself that you're seeing only a tiny fraction of other people's complete experience. Everyone struggles. Everyone has insecurities. Everyone faces challenges that they don't broadcast to the world. The fifth advanced pattern is historical negativity, where your mind uses past experiences as evidence for future failure. This sounds like I always mess up relationships, so this one will probably fail, too. I've never been good at this type of thing. Every time I try something new, it doesn't work out. Historical negativity is particularly powerful because it feels like it's based on facts. You do have a history. You have experienced failures and setbacks. But historical negativity makes two critical errors. It assumes that past patterns must continue into the future. And it gives more weight to negative experiences than positive ones. To interrupt historical negativity, practice selective history focus. Instead of letting your mind automatically scan for past failures, deliberately search for past successes, growth experiences, and times when you overcame challenges. Ask yourself, what's different about me now compared to then? What have I learned? How have I grown? What resources do I have now that I didn't have before? The sixth advanced pattern is perfectionist negativity, where negative thoughts are triggered by anything less than perfect performance. This sounds like, if I can't do it perfectly, why bother trying? I made one mistake, so the whole thing is ruined. I should be able to handle this without any difficulty. Perfectionist negativity is rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of how learning and growth actually work. Progress is messy, uneven, and full of mistakes. Perfectionist negativity paralyzes you because it sets impossible standards and treats normal human struggles as evidence of failure. To handle perfectionist negativity, adopt what I call excellence thinking. Instead of perfectionist thinking, excellence thinking acknowledges that you want to do your best while accepting that your best will vary depending on circumstances, experience, and current capacity. It focuses on improvement rather than perfection, progress rather than flawlessness. The seventh advanced pattern is victim mentality negativity, where negative thoughts position you as powerless against circumstances. This sounds like there's nothing I can do about this. Life always works against me. Other people have advantages I'll never have. Victim mentality. Negativity is particularly destructive because it eliminates agency and personal power. When you believe you're powerless, you stop looking for solutions. Stop taking constructive action and stop believing in your ability to influence your circumstances. To interrupt victim mentality negativity, practice agency activation. Even in genuinely difficult circumstances, ask yourself, what aspects of this situation can I influence? What choices do I have? Even if they're limited. What actions can I take? Even if they're small, there's always something you can control. Even if it's just your response to uncontrollable events. These advanced negative thought patterns require more sophisticated recognition and response skills, but they respond to the same basic reason. The key is developing the pattern recognition to identify them quickly before they can establish themselves in your consciousness. Practice identifying these patterns in low-stakes situations so you can recognize them quickly in high-stakes situations. The more familiar you become with the sophisticated ways that negative thinking presents itself, the less likely you are to be fooled by its disguises. Chapter 12. Emergency Protocols. What to do when negative thoughts feel overwhelming. Sometimes, despite your best efforts and most consistent practice, negative thoughts can still overwhelm your mental defenses. These are the moments when anxiety feels like a tsunami. When depressive thoughts seem to swallow all light. When mental chaos feels more powerful than any technique you've learned. This is when you need emergency protocols. Emergency protocols are different from your regular res practice. They're designed for crisis moments when your nervous system is flooded with stress chemicals, when your thinking is compromised by intense emotion, and when your usual mental tools feel inadequate to the situation. These protocols prioritize immediate stabilization over long-term transformation. The first emergency protocol is what I call the life preserver technique. When you're drowning in overwhelming negative thoughts, you don't try to swim to shore immediately. You grab a life preserver first. You stabilize yourself before you navigate. The life preserver technique has 3 steps. Ground, breathe, and focus. Ground means physically connecting with your immediate environment. Place your feet flat on the floor and press down firmly. Put your hands on a solid surface and feel its texture and temperature. Look around and name 5 objects you can see out loud. Breathe means deliberately slowing and deepening your breathing. But don't try complex breathing patterns when you're in crisis. Just breathe in slowly through your nose. Hold for 3 seconds and breathe out slowly through your mouth. Do this 10 times, counting each exhale. The counting gives your mind something simple and concrete to focus on. Focus means directing your attention to something immediate and neutral, not positive. That's too big a leap when you're overwhelmed. Just neutral. Count backwards from 100 by 7s. Describe the room you're in with as much detail as possible. Recite the alphabet backwards. The goal is to occupy your conscious mind with something that requires attention but doesn't trigger emotion. The second emergency protocol is the circuit overload reset. Sometimes negative thoughts come so fast and intense that they overwhelm your mental circuitry. Your thoughts are racing. Your emotions are chaotic and you can't even identify specific negative patterns to interrupt. When you're experiencing mental circuit overload, don't try to analyze or interrupt individual thoughts. Instead, create what I call a mental whiteout. Go to a quiet space if possible. Close your eyes and visualize a completely white screen in your mind. Don't try to stop the thoughts. Just imagine them as words or images passing across this white screen, then immediately disappearing. If visualization doesn't work for you, try sensory saturation. Choose one sense and focus all your attention on it. Listen to calming music and focus only on the sounds. Hold an ice cube and focus only on the physical sensation. Look at a simple repetitive pattern and focus only on the visual input. The goal is to overwhelm your senses with neutral input so your mind can't focus on the chaotic thoughts. The third emergency protocol is the emotional triage system. Sometimes overwhelming negative thoughts are accompanied by intense emotions, panic, rage, despair, or overwhelming sadness. When emotions are flooding your system, you need to treat them like a medical emergency. Emotional triage works like medical triage. You address the most urgent issue first. If you're experiencing panic, the urgent issue is calming your nervous system. If you're experiencing rage, the urgent issue is preventing destructive actions. If you're experiencing despair, the urgent issue is ensuring your immediate safety and getting support. For panic, use the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. Intensively, name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Do this slowly and deliberately, spending at least 30 seconds on each sense. This grounds you in present moment reality and interrupts the panic response for rage. Use physical discharge safely. Do jumping jacks, push-ups, or run in place for 60 seconds. Scream into a pillow. Hit a punching bag or punch the air vigorously. The goal is to discharge the intense physical energy of anger without harming yourself or others. Once the physical intensity subsides, you can apply mental techniques for despair. Use connection and perspective. Reach out to someone you trust. Call a friend, family member, therapist, or crisis hotline. Don't try to handle overwhelming despair alone. Also remind yourself that intense emotions are temporary. Say to yourself, this feeling is intense, but it's not permanent. I felt differently before, and I'll feel differently again. The fourth emergency protocol is the strategic retreat. Sometimes the most intelligent response to overwhelming negative thoughts is temporary retreat. This isn't avoidance or denial. It's strategic disengagement while you rebuild your mental resources. Strategic retreat means removing yourself from situations that are intensifying your negative thinking. If possible, if you're scrolling social media and spiraling into comparison and self-doubt, put the phone away. If you're in a conversation that's triggering anxiety or anger, politely excuse yourself. If you're in an environment that's overwhelming your senses, find a quieter space. Strategic retreat also means temporarily lowering your expectations for yourself. If you're having a mental health crisis, today is not the day to tackle your biggest challenges or make major decisions. Give yourself permission to do the minimum necessary and focus on basic self-care. The fifth emergency protocol is the support network activation. No one should handle overwhelming negative thoughts alone. Having a support network isn't just helpful, it's essential for mental health. But you need to activate your support network strategically, not just reactively before you're in crisis. Identify 3 types of support people: listeners, advisors, and activists. Listeners are people who can provide emotional support without trying to fix or solve anything. Advisors are people who can provide perspective and practical suggestions. Activists are people who can take concrete actions to help you, drive you somewhere, help with tasks, assist with responsibilities. When negative thoughts are overwhelming, choose the right type of support for your current need. If you need to express and process emotions, contact the listener. If you need perspective or problem-solving help, contact an advisor. If you need practical assistance, contact an activist. The sixth emergency protocol is professional intervention recognition. Sometimes negative thoughts are symptoms of underlying mental health conditions that require professional treatment. Depression, anxiety disorders, trauma responses, or other clinical issues. It's crucial to know when to seek professional help. Seek professional help immediately. If you're having thoughts of harming yourself or others. If you're unable to function in daily life for more than a few days. If you're using substances to cope with negative thoughts. If your negative thinking is accompanied by significant changes in sleep, appetite, or energy, or if friends and family are expressing serious concern about your mental state. Remember, emergency protocols are for crisis situations. They're designed to get you through overwhelming moments, not to replace your regular mental health practices. Once you've stabilized using emergency protocols, return to your regular practice and other positive mental health habits. The goal isn't to never need emergency protocols. The goal is to recognize when you need them and use them effectively to prevent mental health crises from becoming mental health catastrophes. Everyone has overwhelming moments. The difference between people who thrive and people who struggle is having effective tools for handling these inevitable challenges. Chapter 13. Specific Scenarios. Customizing your approach for different life situations. While the REC protocol works universally, different life situations require customized applications. Negative thoughts at work have different triggers and require different strategies than negative thoughts in relationships. Financial stress creates different mental patterns than health anxiety. Understanding how to adapt your approach for specific scenarios will make your practice more effective and practical. Let's start with workplace negative thinking, which affects nearly everyone at some point in their career. Work-related negative thoughts typically fall into several categories: performance anxiety, imposter syndrome, conflict with colleagues, fear of failure or criticism, and overwhelm from too many responsibilities. Performance anxiety at work often sounds like "I'm going to mess up this presentation. Everyone will see that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not qualified for this position." When applying the RESET protocol to performance anxiety, focus your exchange thoughts on competence and preparation rather than perfection. Instead of "I'm going to nail this presentation perfectly," try "I'm prepared and will deliver value to my colleagues." Instead of "everyone will think I'm amazing," try "I have useful information to share and people will appreciate it." The goal is confidence based on realistic assessment of your abilities and preparation, not confidence based on fantasy outcomes. For workplace imposter syndrome, which sounds like "I don't belong here" or "I'm fooling everyone and they'll figure it out eventually," focus your exchange thoughts on growth and contribution. "I'm learning and contributing every day. I was hired because I have valuable skills and potential. Everyone is learning and growing, including me." Relationship negative thinking requires a different approach because it involves other people's actions, emotions, and responses, factors you can't directly control. Relationship negativity often sounds like "they don't really love me. I always ruin relationships. They're going to leave me. We're not compatible." When dealing with relationship negative thinking, the key is distinguishing between thoughts about your own behavior and thoughts about other people's behavior. You can control your own actions, words, and choices. You cannot control other people's feelings, decisions, or responses. Focus your exchange thoughts on your own agency within the relationship. Instead of "they don't appreciate me," try "I'm going to express my needs clearly and kindly." Instead of "this relationship is doomed," try "I'm committed to doing my part to make this relationship healthy and strong." For relationship anxiety specifically, practice secure attachment thinking. This means focusing on what you can give rather than what you might lose, what you can control rather than what you can't control, and present moment connection rather than future fears. Financial negative thinking is particularly challenging because money worries often involve real practical concerns that can't be dismissed as pure anxiety. Financial negativity sounds like "I'll never have enough money. I'm terrible with finances. One unexpected expense will ruin me." Rich people are greedy or dishonest when applying the RE protocol to financial negativity. Distinguish between realistic financial planning and financial catastrophizing. Realistic planning involves creating budgets, building emergency funds, and making informed decisions. Catastrophizing involves endless worry about unlikely scenarios without taking constructive action. Focus your exchange thoughts on financial empowerment and education. Instead of "I'll never be financially secure," try "I'm learning to manage money wisely." Instead of "I can't afford anything I want," try "I'm making thoughtful choices about how to spend my money." Instead of "money is the root of all evil," try "money is a tool I can use to create security and help others." Health-related negative thinking is another area that requires careful calibration because health concerns can range from minor anxieties to serious medical issues. Health negativity often sounds like every symptom means something terrible. "I'm getting old and falling apart. I'll never be healthy again." The doctors don't know what they're doing for minor health anxieties. Focus your exchange thoughts on body wisdom and resilience. My body knows how to heal itself. Most symptoms are temporary and resolve on their own. I'm taking good care of my health through my daily choices for serious health challenges. Focus on agency and adaptation. I'm doing everything I can to support my health. I'm learning to adapt to my current situation. I have the strength to handle whatever comes. Don't try to positive think away genuine medical concerns. But don't let health fears consume your mental energy either. Parenting negative thinking deserves special attention because it affects not just you but your children. Parenting negativity sounds like I'm screwing up my kids. I'm not a good parent. My children will hate me when they grow up. I don't know what I'm doing. When dealing with parenting negativity, remember that perfect parents don't exist. But good enough parents are sufficient for raising healthy children. Focus your exchange thoughts on love, effort, and learning. I love my children and I'm doing my best. I'm learning and growing as a parent. My children need a real parent, not a perfect parent. Academic or learning-related negative thinking affects students of all ages. This sounds like I'm not smart enough for academic negativity. Focus your exchange thoughts on process rather than outcomes. I'm in the process of learning. Understanding takes time and practice. Every mistake teaches me something valuable. I have the ability to improve with effort. Social anxiety and negative thinking about social situations is incredibly common. This sounds like nobody likes me. I always say the wrong thing. People think I'm weird. I don't fit in anywhere. For social negativity, focus on connection rather than impression. Instead of trying to make everyone like you, focus on finding people you genuinely connect with. I'm looking for authentic connections with like-minded people. Some people will appreciate who I am and those are my people. I have something valuable to contribute to conversations. Career transition. Negative thinking affects people changing jobs, industries, or life directions. This sounds like I'm too old to change careers. I don't have enough experience in this new field. I'm starting over from zero. This transition will never work out for career transition negativity. Focus on transferable skills and growth potential. I'm bringing valuable experience from my previous work. I have the ability to learn new skills. Transitions are opportunities for growth. Many people successfully change careers at all stages of life. Remember, the specific content of your exchange thoughts matters less than the emotional tone and underlying assumptions. Whether you're dealing with work stress, relationship challenges, financial concerns, health issues, parenting struggles, academic pressure, social anxiety, or career transitions, your exchange thoughts should be empowering, believable, and focused on what you can control. The key to customizing your reset protocol for different scenarios is understanding the unique triggers, patterns, and emotional dynamics of each situation. Then crafting exchange thoughts that specifically address those patterns with realistic optimism and personal agency. Chapter 14. Building long-term mental immunity. Creating a mind that naturally resists negativity. The ultimate goal of mastering negative thought control isn't just to respond effectively when negativity arises. It's to create a mental environment that naturally resists negative thinking and spontaneously generates positive, empowering thoughts. This is what I call mental immunity. And it's the difference between managing mental health problems and enjoying mental health abundance. Mental immunity works like physical immunity. When your physical immune system is strong, you don't get sick as often. And when you do get sick, you recover faster when your mental immunity is strong. Negative thoughts don't take hold as easily. And when they do arise, they dissipate quickly without creating lasting emotional disturbance. Building mental immunity requires understanding the 5 foundational elements that create a naturally positive mental environment: mental nutrition, cognitive strength training, emotional regulation mastery, environmental optimization, and purpose alignment. Mental nutrition refers to the quality of information and experiences you regularly consume. Just as your body needs good nutrition to maintain physical health, your mind needs good nutrition to maintain mental health. Poor mental nutrition includes excessive negative news, toxic social media content, pessimistic conversations, violent or disturbing entertainment, and any information that consistently makes you feel anxious, angry, or hopeless. Rich mental nutrition includes educational content that expands your knowledge and skills. Inspirational stories of human achievement and resilience. Beautiful art and music that elevates your emotions. Time in nature that connects you to something larger than yourself. And conversations with positive growth-oriented people to improve your mental nutrition. Conduct a mental diet audit for 1 week. Track everything you consume mentally. News, social media, podcasts, books, conversations, entertainment. Notice how each type of content affects your mood, energy, and thought patterns. Then deliberately increase your consumption of content that makes you feel more capable, hopeful, and inspired while decreasing content that makes you feel more anxious, angry, or depressed. Cognitive strength training involves deliberately practicing mental skills that build resilience to negative thinking. Just as physical exercise builds muscle strength, cognitive strength training builds mental strength. The key exercises include gratitude practice, optimistic thinking rehearsal, problem-solving skill development, and cognitive flexibility training. Gratitude practice isn't just about feeling thankful. It's about training your brain to automatically scan for positive aspects of your experience. Spend 5 minutes each morning identifying 3 things you're genuinely grateful for, but focus on different things each day to avoid habituation. This trains your brain to notice positive elements that you might otherwise overlook. Optimistic thinking rehearsal involves regularly imagining positive outcomes for upcoming events. Before important meetings, social gatherings, or challenging situations, spend a few minutes visualizing things going well. See yourself handling challenges competently, connecting positively with others and achieving good outcomes. This prepares your brain to notice and create positive possibilities. Problem-solving skill development involves practicing breaking down challenges into manageable pieces and generating multiple potential solutions. When you face any problem, even minor ones, resist the urge to immediately worry or complain. Instead, practice asking, "What are 3 different ways I could approach this?" This builds confidence in your ability to handle difficulties. Cognitive flexibility training involves deliberately considering alternative perspectives on situations. When you catch yourself thinking about something in a negative way, ask yourself, "What are 2 other ways I could interpret this situation?" This builds mental agility and prevents you from getting stuck in narrow negative interpretations. Emotional regulation mastery is the ability to experience difficult emotions without being overwhelmed or controlled by them. This doesn't mean suppressing or avoiding negative emotions. It means developing the capacity to feel them fully while maintaining your ability to think clearly and make good decisions. The foundation of emotional regulation mastery is understanding that emotions are temporary experiences, not permanent states. Even intense emotions typically last only 90 seconds in your body unless you re-trigger them with continued negative thinking. Practice observing your emotions with curiosity rather than judgment. Notice where you feel them in your body, how they change over time, and what thoughts tend to accompany them. Develop what I call emotional surfing, the ability to ride difficult emotions like a surfer rides waves. You don't try to stop the wave or fight against it. You acknowledge its power. Position yourself skillfully and let it carry you until it naturally subsides. This skill allows you to experience the full range of human emotion without being destabilized by it. Environmental optimization involves designing your physical and social environments to support positive mental states. Your environment has a massive impact on your mental patterns, often below the level of conscious awareness. Cluttered, chaotic, or ugly environments increase stress and negative thinking. Beautiful, organized, and peaceful environments promote calm and positive thinking. Optimize your physical environment by creating spaces that feel calming and inspiring. This might mean decluttering your living space, adding plants or artwork, improving lighting, or creating a designated area for relaxation and reflection. Even small changes can have significant impacts on your mental state. Optimize your social environment by gradually increasing time with people who inspire and support you while decreasing time with people who consistently drain your energy or encourage negative thinking. This doesn't necessarily mean cutting people out of your life entirely, but it does mean being more intentional about how much influence you allow various people to have over your mental state. Purpose alignment is perhaps the most powerful element of mental immunity. When your daily activities are connected to something meaningful and important to you, you become naturally more resilient to negative thinking. Purpose gives context to challenges, making them feel like temporary obstacles on a meaningful journey rather than pointless suffering. Purpose doesn't have to be grandiose or world-changing. It can be as simple as being a good parent, creating beauty through art, helping people solve problems, or contributing to your community. The key is that your purpose is genuinely meaningful to you and provides a sense of direction for your life. To strengthen purpose alignment, regularly reflect on what matters most to you and how your daily activities connect to those values. When you face challenges or negative thinking, remind yourself how overcoming these difficulties serves your larger purpose. This transforms obstacles from meaningless frustrations into meaningful growth opportunities. Building mental immunity takes time, typically 36 months of consistent practice. But unlike temporary fixes that require constant maintenance, mental immunity becomes self-reinforcing. The stronger your mental immunity becomes, the more naturally positive your default mental state becomes, which makes it even easier to maintain positive mental patterns. The goal isn't to become a person who never experiences negative thoughts or difficult emotions. The goal is to become a person whose mental ecosystem is so healthy and resilient that negative thoughts can't establish long-term residence. They may visit occasionally, but they don't move in and take over. With strong mental immunity, you'll find that positive thoughts arise more spontaneously. Challenges feel more manageable, setbacks recover more quickly, and your overall mental state becomes more consistently calm, confident, and optimistic. This is the natural result of creating optimal conditions for mental health rather than just managing mental health problems. Chapter 15. Your mental freedom starts now. The life that awaits you. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want you to understand something profound. You now possess the complete blueprint for mental freedom. You have the exact system that can transform your relationship with your thoughts from slavery to mastery, from chaos to control, from suffering to strength. But knowledge without action is worthless. The question isn't whether this system works. The question is whether you'll work the system right now. As you're listening to these words, you're at a crossroads. One path leads back to your old patterns, your familiar struggles, your comfortable complaints about negative thinking. It's the path of knowing what to do but not doing it. It's the path of having tools but not using them. It's the path of staying exactly where you are while hoping things will somehow magically change. The other path leads to mental transformation unlike anything you've experienced before. It's the path where negative thoughts lose their power over you permanently. It's the path where you become the conscious architect of your own mental experience. It's the path where you discover what your life looks like when your mind becomes your ally instead of your enemy. Let me paint you a picture of what your life will look like when you fully implement everything you've learned today. Imagine waking up in the morning without that familiar knot of anxiety in your stomach. Imagine your first thoughts being thoughts of possibility and anticipation instead of worry and dread. Imagine looking forward to your day instead of dreading what might go wrong. Imagine walking into challenging situations with quiet confidence, knowing that whatever thoughts arise, you have the tools to handle them effectively. Imagine no longer being afraid of your own mind. No longer walking on eggshells around your own consciousness, no longer feeling like you're at the mercy of random mental storms. Imagine the relationships you'll build when you're not consumed by self-doubt and worry. When you're present instead of distracted by mental chatter. When you're confident instead of constantly seeking reassurance. When you're emotionally stable instead of riding the roller coaster of reactive thinking. Imagine the career opportunities you'll pursue when you're not paralyzed by fear of failure or imposter syndrome. When you're willing to take calculated risks because you trust your ability to handle whatever outcomes arise. When you present your ideas with conviction because you're not simultaneously arguing against yourself in your head. Imagine the physical health improvements you'll experience when your body isn't constantly flooded with stress hormones from negative thinking. When your immune system can function properly because it's not suppressed by chronic mental stress. When you have energy for exercise and healthy choices because you're not depleted by mental battles. Imagine the creative projects you'll undertake. When your mental energy isn't consumed by worry and self-criticism. When your mind becomes a source of innovation instead of limitation. When you start seeing problems as creative challenges instead of insurmountable obstacles. Imagine the peace you'll feel when you're no longer at war with your own thoughts. When your inner dialogue becomes supportive instead of critical. When your mind becomes a place you actually enjoy spending time instead of a prison you're trying to escape. This isn't fantasy. This isn't wishful thinking. This is the natural result of applying the RE protocol consistently and building mental immunity systematically. Thousands of people have already experienced this transformation. The only question is whether you'll be next. But I want to be honest with you about what stands between you and this transformation. It's not lack of knowledge. You now have that. It's not lack of tools. You now possess those. What stands between you and mental freedom is the same thing that stands between most people and any meaningful change. The gap between knowing and doing. Here's what's going to happen when you finish listening to this. You're going to feel motivated and inspired. You're going to have every intention of implementing these techniques. You might even practice them once or twice. But then life will get busy. Old patterns will feel more familiar. And there's a very good chance you'll gradually drift back to your old ways of thinking. This is normal. This is expected. This is why most self-help information doesn't create lasting change. People consume the information, feel temporarily inspired, but don't create the systems and habits necessary to make the information permanent. Don't let this be your story. Don't let this be another piece of information you consumed but didn't implement. Don't let this be another opportunity for transformation that you let slip away. Instead, make a commitment right now. Not a vague commitment to try to be more positive. A specific concrete commitment to practice the RE protocol every single day for the next 30 days. A commitment to build your exchange thought library today before you go to sleep. A commitment to practice the foundation building phase even when you don't feel like it. Write down your commitment. Tell someone about it. Put reminders in your phone. Do whatever it takes to bridge the gap between inspiration and implementation, between knowing and doing, between wishing and achieving. Because here's what I know about you. You wouldn't have listened this far if you weren't serious about changing your mental patterns. You wouldn't have invested this time if you weren't committed to transformation. You have something inside you that recognizes the truth in what you've heard today. Honor that recognition with action. Your negative thoughts have controlled you long enough. They've stolen enough of your joy, sabotaged enough of your opportunities and limited enough of your potential. Today is the day you reclaim your mental sovereignty. Today is the day you stop being a victim of your thoughts and start being the master of your mind. The techniques you've learned today work. The system you've discovered today is proven. The transformation you're imagining today is possible. The only variable is your commitment to consistent implementation. Your mental freedom doesn't start tomorrow. It doesn't start next week. It doesn't start when you feel more motivated or when circumstances are perfect. Your mental freedom starts right now, with your next thought, with your next choice, with your next decision to recognize, examine, stop, exchange, and transform the patterns that have been running your life. The life you've always wanted is waiting on the other side of the thoughts you've been afraid to change. Stop waiting. Stop hesitating. Stop letting fear disguise itself as procrastination. Your transformation begins now. Your mental freedom starts today. Your new life is one thought away. The power is in your hands. The tools are at your disposal. The path is clearly marked. All that remains is for you to take the first step and then the next and then the next until mental mastery becomes your new reality. Welcome to your mental freedom. Welcome to your new life. Welcome to the person you've always had the potential to become.